Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo-O, March 6th. Can you believe it? And it is our Pastor and Leaders Conference week. So yeah, I'll be doing that. So I'll be coming into the Devo a little bit early for today, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then Thursday I'll be off. I'm going to go, I'll be out doing some skiing up north with a friend that I grew up with, actually on the same street as my wife and I. So pretty cool. We're going to meet up and hit the slopes and hope the body stays good this week. That's our plan. But you know what? We make our plan, but God's got to direct our steps. That's for sure, right? Because what are man's plans? Nothing, right? It's like, they're all over the place. But who's to say it's going to happen, right? The Lord wills. That's what the week will look like. But you know what? He can always change things up because He's the Lord, right? He's our Father. Hey, we're in 1 Kings chapter 17. If you're new to the Devo, welcome to the devotions. These are my devotions, time to go through the Bible. So I do my devotions actually through the entire Bible. It's kind of different. A lot of people jump around. I don't. And the reason why is because I grew up not knowing the Bible, not in church, and a very secular, progressive, atheist guy. So when I started reading the Bible, I just opened it up and it was said Genesis, and I started reading. And that's really how I got really converted to the truth, the historicity, the integrity of the Bible was simply by going through it. And a lot of the concepts and a lot of the questions that I had about God were actually answered as I just simply read through the text and went through the narrative of the Bible. And I think a lot of people, when they have questions about the Bible, it's simply because they just haven't really read it. And if they've read it, they've read bits and pieces. And so it's all jumbled, and they don't quite see the cohesive plan of God and why God does things the way He does them. And there is method to the madness. And when you look at it, you go, man, that makes a lot of sense when you read it in its narrative proper way. So in the sense that in the narration flow, that's what I'm meaning. So we're in 1 Kings chapter 17 today, and we get kind of introduced to a very famous biblical character now in the book of 1 Kings. 1 Kings has been a book about the kings of Israel, hence Kings. And it's kind of a sad book in that there's a lot of division, like in a family or, a friendship can be where you divide over different things. Well, this was a big division, and it really wrapped itself. You see, the emphasis that God is giving us in this book is that the emphasis is on idol worship, right? Instead of worshiping the true and living God as King David did. And King David's always referred to in this book as kind of the benchmark, like where we need to be as a king. We need to be where King David was at. King David wasn't a perfect person, but we saw that he worshiped the true and living God. And this is where the other kings are failing. So the kingdom is divided. There's a north kingdom, there's a south. The north kingdom, we were introduced, has now a new king, because kings keep dying. This is over periods of years, this book. And we see that his name was Ahab. And he marries a lady who's not a Jewish woman from Sidonia, the Sidonians. And her name is Jezebel. Yeah. And she is the daughter of King Ethbaal of the Sidonians. So he marries, in a sense, royalty of the area of the Sidonians. And this guy was pretty rough. This guy set up all these idol poles everywhere. And it reminds me of, we just got to be careful of what we're setting up, around us in our life. What are we doing? Are we setting up certain things that cause us to fall? And man, there's a lot of truth to that in our lives, right? Sometimes the things that stumble us, can easily just be removed. They can just be, you could pick it up and just take it out. But sometimes we just keep those things there, right? And we continue to stumble in it. We're all failures of that. None of us, I think, have done that perfectly. Maybe others have done it better than others. But it's a lifelong journey to be, cutting off things, taking care of those places of idolatry. Because sometimes idols aren't just things that are outside that you can pick up and move into the trash or something like that. But sometimes the idols are things that are in your heart, right? And those things, man, are very difficult to deal with. And so heart issues can really take up a lot of our time and really be the reason for most of our motivations in life as well. So here we go. Let's see who this famous person is I'm talking about. Does anybody know? Now, Elijah, who was from Tishbe in Gilead. Hey, Gilead, we know that place, in Israel. That's a pretty famous place, Gilead. It says, told King Ahab, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, the God I serve, there will be no dew or rain during the next few years until I give the word. Now, this would be the way to handle when a person becomes president that you don't want them to be president, right? I say that jokingly, but man, isn't that interesting? Ahab becomes the leader of the northern tribes of Israel, right? Out of the 12 tribes of Israel. Here, Ahab's now commander-in-chief of the top part, the northern, really 10 tribes, pretty much. And what is it? What is Elijah? And here we get a name of one of the prophets, again, one of these people called prophets, spokesperson for God, relaying information from the Lord to the people. And it's been a handful of people, man, a real interesting crew. We don't get a lot of detail into a lot of them in this book, but now all of a sudden we're going to get a lot into this guy, Elijah, and how God has used him. Now, Ahab was such a gnarly king that God gives even more, if you will, grace to bring a prophet before the nation. And this is a principle where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more, right? Just when you think it's gnarly, man, something happens. God's doing a great work. Just when things are totally out of whack. And isn't that true even in our world today? Just as things get so out of whack, what happens? Good things, right? People seeking the Lord. And you know what? I got to say this, but college kids seeking the Lord on campus is awesome. That's where it's at. What needs to change in any culture is its education systems. I went through it. I went through a Cal State school. I know how it goes. I know the teaching and what their worldview is in college. And it shapes generations of people that graduate. It shapes, and then that's how nations change, is through education. So to hear that there's kids seeking the Lord in college everywhere in the country, yeah, right on. Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. And Elijah has sent a token of grace to the people. Hey, are you a token of grace to the people? When you go out, are you a grace gift to people? Or do people see you and they go, oh, And maybe if they do go, hopefully it's for a good reason. Hopefully it's because you're going to love on them and maybe they don't want to be loved on, right? Maybe you're going to share truth with them and they don't want to hear your truth anymore, hear about God anymore. But those are good reasons, but let's not make it those bad reasons, right? This person's a jerk and this person's, God, what a bitter soul this person is, that kind of thing. Now, Elijah, who is from this area, said, hey, it's not going to rain. Again, that would be funny, right? Hey, the person becomes president and you say, you know what? I don't know if I'm into this. You know what? It's not going to rain. So the Lord says, so this is affecting the power grid of the day, right? This is affecting the way their sustenance. This is a pretty serious deal. Could you imagine something happening in our culture for this long, for the next few years? That's affecting our power systems, right? Our sustenance, our food. Then the Lord said to Elijah, go to the east and hide by Kerith Brook, near where it enters the Jordan. Drink from the brook and eat what the ravens bring you, for I have commanded them to bring you food. Interesting. Very Noah-like, if you've ever read that narrative, right, of Noah bringing the animals to the ark. How did those animals ever get to the ark? How did Noah ever collect them? He didn't. Read the narrative, right? God brought them. And here we see something very similar. The Lord, who is the creator of all, the Bible teaches, is over even the animals. Very interesting. And he can train them. And probably a lot better than we can train them. And I say probably, of course, jokingly, not probably, he can. And he brings Elijah food. God provides for us. Even in our difficult times, God will provide. And even if God does not deliver us, we will be ultimately, in a sense, delivered, right? When we pass away, when this body dies, we will ultimately be with the Lord. And so we're in a win-win, that's for sure. So Elijah did as the Lord told him and camped beside Kerith Brook, east of the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat each morning and evening, and he drank from the brook. But after a while the brook dried up, for there was no rainfall anywhere in the land. Then the Lord said to Elijah, go and live in the village of Zarephath, near the city of Sidon. Wow, why don't you get close to Sidon? Interesting. I wonder how Elijah was vibing this one, right? Get close to isn't that the enemy area? Like, do I really want to get too close to that? And he says, I have instructed a widow there to feed you. So he went to Zarephath. And as he arrived there, the gates of the village, he saw a widow gathering sticks, and he asked her, would you please bring me a little water in a cup? And she was going to get it. He called to her, bring me a bite of bread too. But she said, I swear by the Lord your God that I don't have a single piece of bread in the house. I have only a handful of flour left in a jar and a little cooking oil in the bottom of the jug. I was just gathering a few sticks to cook this last meal, and then my son and I will die. Talk about dour depression, right? Man, what a drag. Hey, you know what? I swear by the Lord your God. Man, I got nothing. I'm empty. You want something from me? I'm bankrupt. Sometimes that's how it feels in life, right? That we feel empty, bankrupt, nothing to give, right? But Elijah said to her, don't be afraid. Go ahead and just do what you've said. Oh, don't be afraid. What beautiful words. Oh, how does fear motivate us? How much does fear motivate us? What do you fear? Take out a piece of paper and write it. Write down the people you love and then write down what you fear about your relationship with them. Wow. Now we start getting down to the nitty-gritty of our emotions, right? And really our motivations. What really motivates me in life? Is it really faith? Am I really trusting God? Or am I just moving out of my fears? The prophet says, don't be afraid. Jesus says this stuff to us too, right? Don't be afraid. Those are powerful. Powerful words. Because when we're honest, we know we do. And we know we certainly fail that command to not be afraid. But here Elijah says that, don't be afraid, go ahead. Do just what you've said. Right? And so then it says, he says, first make me a meal and then, use whatever's left, but you go do it. Go trust. Go believe me. Go start making, start baking, start working, start serving. Do you trust? Are you going to step out in faith? Are you going to trust God? Here she has nothing, right? Let's see what she does. Well, Elijah finishes and says in verse 14, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, that there will always be flour and olive left in your containers until the time when the Lord sends rain and the crops grow again. Wow, what a promise. Hey, God gives you a promise, and on those promises, we can take a step out, right? And we can trust. Even when it seems lean, we can get out there and do it. And then there's a promise of a filling. So she did as Elijah said, and she and Elijah and her family continued to eat for many days. Isn't that cool? It just happened as she trusted the prophet. As she trusted, then there was this continual provision of food going on. Notice she had to do something, though. She had to get at it. She had to get busy, right? She just couldn't sit. God, help me not to be that person where I have no works. Faith without works is dead. I wanna get to it, So maybe I could get up off the couch. Maybe I gotta make the calls. Maybe I gotta put myself out there, right? Trust that God's gonna meet me right there. He's gonna work through that effort that I bring, and He'll bring His grace in that effort and produce something super fruitful. And so it's great. She gets her needs met. Now, sometime later, the woman's son became sick. Isn't that how it goes? It seems like everything's very great, super faithful. She's trusting the Lord. Everything's going great. And what, her son gets sick? Huh? What's wrong? Isn't that interesting? How, people get sick. Here the Bible doesn't say that, the boy was in sin. It doesn't say the boy was doing something weird and that's why he got sick. No, it just says the boy got sick. It says it in passing. Like, that's what happens. And this is, if we've read the Bible, we know why. Because this is why there's the curse, right? We are fallen individuals. Our bodies are falling apart. Death has been introduced into the creation through Adam and Eve's fall. So he grew sick and he died. And then Elijah said, then she said to the man of God, "Oh, man of God, what have you done to me? Have you come here to point out my sins and kill my son?" Wow. The mom seems to indicate, like, hey, are you here to critique something about me, like the sins that I've had in my life? Who knows what it is? Maybe she had this kid out of wedlock, whatever it is. Maybe there's something, but here she becomes guilty. She feels guilty. Is there something you're going to point out to me? Is that why you're here? Is to kind of, judge me and pick me apart? Or maybe use my vulnerability, against me. Is that why you're here? Meaning, I'm vulnerable. I've made mistakes, that maybe I'm sorrowful about those mistakes, and maybe you've seen that in my life, and now you're going to kind of attack me. Is that why you've come? So maybe she's had a lot of attack in her life. Maybe she's that girl who's been, in a sense, verbally abused a lot in her life. Maybe a lot of people have said things to her, and she just assumes that this is what's going to happen with the man of God as well. Meaning, I don't know how many men she's felt safe around. Maybe there's not many men that she's really felt quite safe around. And so she finds herself alone. And she really doesn't want to draw close probably to any guys, because she hasn't had a great track record of safety. And wouldn't it be cool if every person of God, especially in this narrative, males would be just safe places with with ladies, right? Just to be safe, right? Not using their vulnerabilities against them, not picking them apart, right? But loving them, caring for them. And this is, we'll see if Elijah's going to go this direction. So Elijah says, give me your son. Interesting. And he took the child's body from her arms, carried him up the stairs to the room where he was staying, and he laid his body on his bed. Then Elijah cried out to the Lord, O Lord my God, why have you brought tragedy to this widow who has opened her home to me, causing her son to die? O Lord, why? Why, Lord, have you brought this tragedy on us? Lord, why have you caused her son to die? I love his plea to the Lord, right? It's one of why. And sometimes we don't think whys are good prayers. God, why did you do that? But it's good to ask all kinds of questions to God. Not just the why, maybe the what. But I want you to see, and I think for me this morning too, I got to remember that it's okay to talk to God and say, hey, God, why did you bring this on? What are you showing? Again, why, what are you doing? What are you showing me? And he stretched himself out over the child 3 times. A few times, right? The rain, few years, here a few times. And cried out to the Lord, O my Lord God, please let the child's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's prayer, and the life of the child returned, and he revived. Then Elijah brought him down from the upper room and gave him to his mother. Look, he said, here is your son. Your son is alive. Then the woman told Elijah, now I know for sure that you are a man of God, and that the Lord truly speaks through you. I love this, because his act of love and intercession for her, meaning interceding for her, stepping in the gap, for her, on her behalf, for her son, really was the safe thing to do. It really showed her that this man truly was safe. He truly didn't have some, he didn't have this stuck-up persona of like, well, your son died because of your sin, and it's because of your sin that he got sick, and this is why, because, man, if you just repented of your sin, then he would get better. No, nothing like that. Elijah instead pleads with the Lord on behalf of the widow's son. And he tells the Lord that this woman has shown kindness to him. That's awesome. Instead of spiritually manipulating and spiritually, abusing, right? Like so many people do. Instead, he says that she did an act of kindness towards him. Isn't that weird? She thought he was going to pick her apart, spiritually abuse her, beat her up now, shame her now, whatever it is, make her feel really bad. But instead, what does he say? Hey, you did an act of kindness, and he pleads with the Lord on her behalf for her son. And notice the result. The widow what? Goes, man, I know now truly you are of the Lord. And that's not just because Elijah does this amazing, 3 times of I don't know what, right? Laying on this child and just crying out to the Lord. But it's that safety that Elijah was a guy who wasn't going to use craftiness. And the New Testament says that about us. Let's not use craftiness, manipulation, right? To get our ways, to do our thing, to get all spiritually hyped, but he just comes at it in a super honest way, in a super safe way, one of integrity. And I love that. And she looks at him and she goes, man, that dude's a man of God. that guy's really the real deal. And maybe if we just, do what Elijah did, maybe we have an act of kindness. Maybe we plead with God and intercede for, on behalf of people, help them out in that way, to intercede for them. Maybe people will see a good motive in us and realize that we're truly sincere. We're not out, we don't have some, crafty thing that's going on. So I love Elijah's character here. And I think that really won the day over, and because she certainly thought like, oh man, you're going to point out all my junk. That's it. You're going to tell me why my kid died. You're going to lay it all out. Oh, this is what you did wrong. This is what you did. This is what you did. And blah, 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 blah. That kind of thing, So, man, beware of spiritual abuse, right? Because it happens, And remember, the fruit of the Spirit in our life, the fruit of the Spirit is love. It's the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Yeah, if someone says, oh, I'm a man of God, and there's no joy, no goodness in God, no peace in Christ, then that's great. But, like our pastor says, tell your face that you're into the joy of the Lord, because it certainly ain't showing it now. Yeah. If we have to correct someone, we do so, but we do so with a heart of love. Yeah, a loving heart, but notice Elijah, man, really sees this woman needs someone safe, and he certainly, provides that. So very cool, Devo. A lot of stuff to think about always. But thanks for going through the chapter with me. And tomorrow we'll hit another chapter, Lord willing, okay? So you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.